All right, looks like I'm live again. Welcome to another Daily Lasagna. Um, Now, I've been doing these at like 5:45 in the morning, and I'm not doing this one today at 5:45 in the morning, and it's basically because I wasn't awake at 5:45 in the morning this morning. Um, I This week has just been incredible, and by incredible, it's been really rough. If you've been watching these, you know that on Monday I had a uh, I don't know if I'd say massive, but I had a panic attack. Things are looking up now, um, but yeah, things are just still a little bit crazy, and I'm still tired from everything. It's kind of funny because, um, so anyway, I went to bed at like 8 o'clock last night because I was just completely emotionally and physically exhausted. And as I actually took a sleeping pill or like a sleep aid. It's just one of those Unisom. Anyway, so it I was just hoping I could conk out because I was beyond stressed out and just completely done. I think I freaked my wife out a little bit. Um, and I'm kind of hoping that this just gives people an idea sometimes of you know what people go through with entrepreneurship and doing all the things that people are out there doing. I think a lot of people try and put a pretty face on how things are, and I don't know if that's really helpful. You may also notice that I haven't shaved in a few weeks, just because I've been so heads down working on all of the things. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to decide at this point if there are other things that I can quit doing and just focus on the things that are really important to me. And I think that's probably going to be the theme for this video is just figuring that out, just buckling down and nailing down a lot of this stuff. So I've been listening to the book Profit First. I finished it, but I'm probably going to listen to it again here pretty soon. Um, and effectively, he talks about um, well, he gives you a system for managing the money in the business and managing money for personally. And I like that, and it works well with Dave Ramsey's stuff for personal finances, and so I'm probably going to incorporate a lot of that. But anyway, what he does is he has you take this assessment, and the assessment essentially what it does is you go look at. I looked at my profit and loss for the business over the last 12 months, and then you put the numbers into the column. So you put one in for um, like your gross revenue, and he says to do that minus contractors and materials, but since I have contractors, but they're not subcontractors who are doing the work that I'm getting paid for, if that makes sense. So I didn't count that, and I don't have any materials because all of my materials are digits, right? They're bits because you get a podcast episode, and um, the sponsors or people buying digital products or whatever are getting bits, and so I don't have materials that I make stuff out of. And so I might buy equipment, but I feel like that's a different thing. So that was all zero. And then, I filled in the other numbers, how much I paid myself and how much I paid in operating expenses for the business and things like that. And just kind of took a look at that. And then he gives you some targets for how much money you made over the last 12 months. And I fell in the lowest bracket, which is under $250,000. And so he tells you that you should be taking 50% as owner's pay. You should be setting aside 5% for profit. You should be, I'm trying to remember what the other categories were, but major adjustments on all those categories. Operating expenses was one, taxes was one. And so I need to set aside like $30,000 more per year in taxes. That was way more than my tax bill was this year. But at the same time, if I set that aside, then I know I can cover it, right? So yeah, just looking at all of that information and trying to figure out, where I'm at, I realized that my operating expenses for running the podcast and everything else was way off. It was like $60,000 more than he recommends, given what I brought in this year. So I'm definitely going to be adjusting that, and I've done that to a certain degree. I've cut a whole lot of expenses I actually had to let somebody go because I couldn't afford to pay her anymore, because things got tight. And so I can see things kind of picking back up again and working out the way that I want them to. But it's definitely not 100% where I want it to be. And it also kind of drove home that if I had paid myself that 50%, um, and then put away what we didn't need, then some of the slowdown in the business wouldn't have been as critical. And so I'm figuring a lot of that stuff out. And yeah, I think, like I said, things are starting to take off. I have the renewals for sponsorships coming up in September, and so I see that as kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. I've got a few other sponsors that are signing up right now, and so that that'll carry us through this month. But yeah, it's just been kind of crazy as far as um, figuring out all of these things and getting it all in the right place. And then the other thing is I've just been trying to adjust my mindset as it comes to money and things like that, and figure that stuff out. But yeah, now that I kind of know how I want to manage that and how I should have been managing it, I'm trying not to beat myself up about it, because it doesn't help. I can view it as a cautionary tale, and if I start to slack off on it, then I can, oh well, it really sucked when you didn't do this, so you got to do it. But yeah, anyway, so that's one area that I'm really focused on. But yeah, last night, I was burned out. I was burned out to the max. And it was interesting because I was so far gone that, like, even recording the podcast yesterday, I just wasn't 100%. And so yeah, I turned it in early, and I kind of I didn't go to sleep, but I just laid there, listened to an audiobook, tried to relax, and that went until about 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning, just because my mind was racing and it was telling me, you got to go do this, you got to go do that, you got to go do this, and what I really needed was just some time off. And anyway, so I started feeling better probably around 12:30, and then I also couldn't sleep because it was really warm up here, because master bedroom's upstairs, so is my office, um, and so anyway, so I went downstairs and laid on the couch, because we have two air conditioning units. We have one for upstairs and one for downstairs. The one downstairs was working, the one upstairs wasn't. So we just had all the windows open upstairs, and then we just kind of counted on the fact that the cooler air would mostly stay downstairs, and that tended to work. It's fixed now. My father-in-law came over, and he spent about 10 minutes looking at my air conditioning unit and said, "Oh, your capacitor's broken," because it has a big capacitor. It's about the size of a small can of Coke. If you've not the full size cans, but if you've seen the smaller size cans, and that goes out on my air conditioner periodically, but before it was always a different indicator that it was dead, and so it didn't even occur to me to replace it, because usually what would happen is it would just not cool as well, and this time it completely quit cooling. So anyway, so I had an extra one in the garage, and so I just went and grabbed it and we replaced it. And then I guess you don't need to know all this, but anyway, it has a radiator that goes around it that the compressor is hooked to, and if the capacitor's dead, then the compressor doesn't run, it doesn't cool anything. It'll blow the air, but it won't cool it. But anyway, so that was all full of gunk, so we sprayed that out as well. And yeah, anyway, so that's working now, and it's probably 74 degrees in here. It was 77 when we finally got it turned on. So anyway, so I've got that fixed. I've got, you know, it also turned out. So I mentioned yesterday that, I was freaking out because I didn't know how I would pay for all this stuff, and and I was thinking about it, and I was praying about it, trying to figure out, okay, am I going to go find a full-time job? And I felt like I really shouldn't. And then I was freaking, well, I don't know where the money's going to come from, and it turned out that there was money available, and so that should come in today. And pay the bills and all that stuff. And then if I can get some of this other stuff to kick over and kick into line, then we'll get the rest of it figured out. But yeah, it's anyway, it's just been this roller coaster emotionally, and it's completely worn me out. So I'm still pretty tired. Anyway, I completely slept through my alarm. I never do that. I use the alarm on my watch, so it just vibrates, and it wakes me up every time. It was just this morning. I completely slept through it. I was completely wrung out, and I'm still pretty tired, but I'm doing a lot better. So yeah, so we'll get back on the horse and get it ridden out. At this point, I am getting all of the podcast episodes that we've recorded this week. We recorded 5: Ruby Rogues twice, JavaScript Jabber, Adventures in Angular, and My Ruby Story. So we'll get that out and get that rolling, and yeah, make that all happen the way that it should. And then I'm just going to jump in and get the rest of this done. I have some action items I sent to my business coach, and I'm planning on getting those done, plus a few more things. I've been implementing the 12-week year, and so we'll see how that all goes. But anyway, yeah, just stuff. Anyway, I've probably rambled on long enough. But anyway, I'm doing these every day. They're probably going to keep going at 5:45 in the morning Mountain Time. So if you're on the East Coast, it's not terribly early at 7:45 in the morning. If you're on the West Coast, then yeah, it's like 4:45 in the morning. But yeah, I intend to keep doing that. I've been feeling a lot better. A few other things that are looking up here. So I'm type 2 diabetic, and last time I went to my doctor, my hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of your, it's supposed to be some kind of average over the last 3 months, and I've heard that it's not perfect, but it's I guess a decent indicator. And I'm not going to go into all the scientific reasons why. But anyway, so my hemoglobin A1C when I went to the doctor last time was a 10.2. When I was diagnosed, it was almost 15, and that's 15% something or other. Anyway, milliliters per milligrams per deciliter. Maybe anyway, 15 is incredibly high. 10 is high. They try and get you to 7 or below as a diabetic. And yeah, I had a few people ask me what I did to change it because I tweeted it. And yeah, I've been doing the ketogenic diet, and then I've been taking my medicine, though I've kind of cut back on a lot of it because it was forcing my blood sugar too low. And so I think I'm going to find some kind of a happy medium there. But yeah, things also wound up where currently don't have health insurance. Yeah, the slowdown, what happened was the insurance company tried to take the premium out of the bank account, and there wasn't enough money, so the bank would decline them. But I didn't realize that had happened for 2 months in a row. And so I got a call from one of my healthcare providers, and they said, hey, your health insurance is declining our claim. So I called up the health insurance company. I'm like, what the heck? And they said, well, we haven't been paid. You have 3 days to pay us $2,700, or we're gonna cancel your health insurance. And $2,700 was a little more than I could come up with in 3 days. So that's kind of how that went. It's kind of a little bit scary to be without health insurance and to be diabetic. But if it's well controlled, you're much less likely to have any kind of incident with it. And so I just need to control it well. But at the same time, I mean, diabetes causes other major health problems. So, if I had a heart attack or a stroke or something, we'd be in big trouble. And that's generally what I kind of want the health insurance there for. Yeah, it's nice that it helps pay for my medication, and yeah, it's nice that it helps pay for some of the other stuff that going to the doctor and what have you. But when it comes right down to it, I mean, I tend to think of insurance as insurance like car insurance, where I have it and I don't think about it, and I don't think about it every time I fill up my car or drive. But if I get in an accident, I have somebody to call, and I kind of think of health insurance kind of along those same lines. I don't don't really think that you need insurance to help you pay for your medication, etc. Um, Now, if you're insured against developing those kinds of conditions, and then you develop those kinds of conditions, then yeah, the insurance should pay for that because you paid to mitigate the risk. But where I'm already in the pool of people that have that health issue, um, you know, I have to pay for the medication either way. And in order for them to make a profit on paying for my medication, then I actually have to pay them more than my medication costs. Or I have to be in a pool where enough other people are paying for more than what my medication costs. And so it doesn't make as much sense to me um, to have that set up. And I'm getting dangerously close to politics, and I really don't want to dive into politics or any of that stuff here. I really just want to talk about where I am with the business. But anyway, um, and just give people an idea of where I'm at. So anyway, that's kind of where things are now. I'm probably going to call it early today as well and just go crash because I'm pretty tired. But at the same time, I feel like I'm kind of pulling out of this emotionally and physically. I also, one other thing that I guess I can talk about really quickly, even though it's not kind of fully formed. Um, so I did have an issue with a sponsor, and it sounds like it's mostly been smoothed over. But I guess you just never know. And they're one of the sponsors that sponsors me for a good chunk of what I bring in. And so, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. And I was also really upset because I kind of blew it for them. So, um, anyway, so that freaked me out on Monday, and that's why I had the panic attack. But it also just kind of shows me, A, I need a better system around the sponsorships. And it also, B, demonstrates to me that I need to get a handle on other uh, avenues of bringing in revenue, so that if something does happen, and in this case, it was partially my fault and partially not my fault. Just we had some changes and one or two things got missed, but um, at the end of the day, the buck stops here. It's my fault. So anyway, but yeah, so like if they pulled out, or if one of the other bigger sponsors pulled out, it would get kind of hard around here. And so I kind of want to have some other way of bringing in money. I'm hoping the conferences can kind of fill that void, but I'm also looking at building some courses, and I kind of want to do something a little bit different. And so um, I've been talking about Kickstarters for a while. I've been talking Kickstarters on here, and I've been talking about Kickstarters on some of the podcasts and things. So I'm probably going to do the Kickstarters for the podcast, like I've said. Of course, I'm going to shave first so I don't look like a caveman. But the other thing is that I might do a Kickstarter for some of those courses. So, and then what I want to do is I don't want to do here are all the things you have to know to build an app in Rails. What I want to do is I want to actually say, okay, this month we're going to build this app in Rails. And so, yeah, we may skip over some of the common things that you might have to do in Rails. Or, the first app I'm really strongly considering doing a Rails backend and an Angular front end. But anyway, so then it's okay. So here's how you build these out. Here's how you tie it all together. And at the end of the day, you have an app that you can use. And yeah, what I'm kind of thinking about that is just that then I can, so then if I put out a Kickstarter for that app and the process of building it, then people can actually come in and they can walk through the process with me of building out the app that that we're doing. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So it's not going to be like bullet points and here's what you have to know about migrations. It's just going to be like, hey, we're going to do a migration. It's going to create this table and it's going to put these columns in it. They're going to have these types. We're going to set up these kinds of validations on it. And I don't know that I'm necessarily going to avoid talking about beginnerish stuff, but I'm going to explain what I'm doing as I do it. And I'm not going to go into here's what you have to understand in order to use Rails. It's just going to be, here's what we're doing, here's how it works. And at the end of the thing, you're going to have an app that you've built. And it'll be the same kind of app that I've built. And so that's kind of the approach that I'm taking there. And then I also need to just gear up some of the affiliate programs that I have, because I think there are opportunities there that I'm just missing. So anyway, I need to quit rambling. I'll probably have more stuff to talk about tomorrow. I'm hoping tomorrow I just get up and say, "So I had a great rest," and blah 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 blah. But yeah, I still have to figure some other things out. Also, tomorrow morning is Toastmasters, and I am practicing my speech for the area contest. So I've passed the club contest. Um, and so anyway, they're giving me a shot to practice my tall tales speech at the club again before I go to the area contest in 2 weeks. So that should be fun. It'd be really fun to move up to division, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, area you usually get the decent speakers from the other clubs, and so you know, no guarantees that I'll be the best. But anyway, I think that would be fun. And then I'm still trying to figure out making it down to VMworld and just hobnobbing with a bunch of folks. So anyway, just figuring that stuff out. I do have some friends in Las Vegas, so I may actually see if I can just ride a couch for 3 or 4 days and then just go down and meet people in town. But yeah, if I do that, that means that I also have to fix my truck because it is leaking power steering fluid like crazy. I get in, if I fill it up with power steering fluid and then I drive it, by the time I get to where I'm going, the power steering is dead again. So essentially, what happens is I'll put the power steering fluid in, and I'll start driving, and it's easy to turn fine. But by the time I get there, I actually have to fight the steering wheel to make it turn. So I'll probably wind up working on that stuff on Saturday. But anyway, so things are looking good here. That said, I mean, I guess if anybody watches this and knows of a company that, I can reach out to as a sponsor, or, I wouldn't say no to some contract work as well, but it has to be something that I can keep doing the podcast with. So probably something part-time-ish. Let me know. And yeah, I guess I'll sign off. I see that I've had one viewer this whole time, and I probably bored them to death. But anyway, I'm still figuring out exactly what I want this to be, but it's mostly just a video journal, so I guess it can be whatever it is. But yeah, so right now it is 4:53. I'm not taking off. But yeah, 4:53 in the afternoon. Tomorrow I should be back on at 5 something in the morning. And yeah, we'll talk to you then. Bye.